So in this course of global ontology, that's really a powerful word, because ontology, ontos in the Greek means being, ontos logos, when you have the logos of any discipline like psychologos, psychology, or logos, logic itself, you're getting into deep science. And you have a science of, so ontos logos, ontology is a science of being. And what our great founding thinkers in the European tradition, it's East and West. Buddha is a great ontologist, first philosopher. Yoga is doing first philosophy, trying to get to the deepest being and the language of the code of being. But we stayed right with the European tradition of the quest for being. And someone like Aristotle, for example, the student of Plato, saw that there is a first science. That's really a powerful word, because ontology, ontos in the Greek means being, ontos logos, when you have the logos of any discipline like psychologos, psychology, or logos, logic itself, you're getting into deep science. And you have a science of, so ontos logos, ontology is a science of being. And what our great founding thinkers in the European tradition, it's East and West. Buddha is a great ontologist, first philosopher. Yoga is doing first philosophy, trying to get to the deepest being and the language of the code of being. But we stayed right with the European tradition of the quest for being. And someone like Aristotle, for example, the student of Plato, saw that there is a first science, the science of ontology. Do we need to pause? The science of ontology. And it's first philosophy, and this is huge because it's gotten forgotten. And Aristotle, following Socrates and Plato, saw that there is something first, and it's being. And being is another word for reality, and the field of reality. And if we don't have to get into theology, the language of God, but often theology is a branch of ontology. And what you find is that ontology as being is infinite, and you can call it Yahweh or Allah or Om or Brahman or Buddha nature, whatever name for the infinite. And the reason why there is such a very important thing, first philosophy, is because if we have the grammar of being, the code, the DNA, the language of being, we're going to have the code for everything else, because everything is going to be a derivative from being. So that's first philosophy. And most people in our contemporary world have kind of lost touch with the importance of first philosophy, because it's the grammar of being. And if we don't have that literacy, and we're human beings, right? Rational beings, and reason has to do with the logos. And logos is the source of all reason and intelligence and consciousness. So logos sapiens, we are logos sapiens, and if we don't know our logos, then something is cut off from our own being. We're cut off from our own being. And that can be a human disaster, because if we are human beings and we aren't in touch with our being, then we can have ill-being and not have well-being and happiness. And this is going to get us into the founding vision of Declaration of Independence and the vision of that time in the founding of the American dream of opening a space for democracy and human freedom and the right to life, liberty, freedom, and well-being. Well-being is a matter of ontology. So what we've done in the course is to look at some of the great ontologists, and we see that there's almost like a medical ontology. It means that is medicine, because if your being is broken, you're going to suffer existential, ontological, illness and discomfort of all kinds. For example, if you don't have a meaningful life, and meaning comes from being, if you have no meaning, then what's the point of living? And it could lead to very deep despair and facing emptiness in a midlife crisis. That's an ontological breakdown. So to be a citizen and to be a human, we need to have the language of being. Am I going on too long?
Oh no, please continue.
Are you okay?
Yeah, that's true.
You're getting a private course here. So just to continue. So we do need, every human being needs to have some basic education and acquaintance with a language of being to be a human being. Because if I am cut off from my real self, from reality, if reality is deeper than I think, and if my thinking process is blocking me and eclipsing and causing blind spots to tap my original being, then this is a very serious medical problem for each of us as human beings, and certainly in the American civic space. To be an American citizen and a global citizen in a multicultural society. That's extremely important because a culture is an ontology code. People don't usually know that. If I'm a believing Christian, I'm living in one ontology space. It's one grammar of reality. If I'm a scientist, I have a different lens. I'm living in a different space. And my world as a scientist is I can have Big Bang to explain the universe around me. If I'm a religious Jew or a Christian or a Muslim, it would be God, Yahweh, Allah, opened up the universe. Let there be light. Genesis. That's a different story. It's a different ontology. So a culture is a code of ontology, and we don't even know it. And if we're not aware of how our culture and is giving me a worldview of reality and the lens and shaping my lens, that is basic human literacy. And we have a right to be. This is extremely important. We usually don't hear that, right? If you get stopped by a traffic officer and he says, you've got a right to be, right? And a right to be silent, those kinds of rights. The right to be is an ultimate human right. And so just to go fast forward to assisting students in our lab, I call it an ontology lab because it's not just information you talk about, but you have to go into experience to encounter being in a direct way. That's a laboratory of ontology, to encounter reality in a deeper, authentic way. That's what the ontology lab is. And what our great visionaries across the planet, east, west, north, and south, through the ages, is that on the ground floor reality is an infinite field. Whatever name, you don't have to use God names for it, but all God names are trying to get to the first, ultimate name, first philosophy. And so if you're in Islam, Allah, that's a living first philosophy. If it's Yahweh, another living. If it's God, if it's Buddha, if it's yoga, Om, Tao, if it's Tao, these are all first philosophies. So to be an awakened human citizen is to be heads up and to have some basic literacy of what it means to be in order to have well-being. So if I'm going to flourish in well-being, my being is going to be well, which is happiness, then we need some education in basic ontology. So in our ontology lab, our wonderful students are all learning the long centuries of questing, how do we get to a deeper, authentic encounter with being? When Descartes in the Meditations was seeing he could question his entire culture, and it all could be doubted, and he wasn't tapping the source and ground, and he was shaken by that. He was trying to cross into a deeper, authentic space of being where he could be his grounded self beyond all doubt. So when he said, I am, that infamous moment in history, I am, I exist. What I am, I don't know, but I exist. That was a great moment for ontology. Everyone needs to have that I am moment to awaken his or her being. So just to get to the point, when we look at the founding of our American dream and American Declaration of Independence, the founding of democracy, American democracy in Philadelphia back in 1776 vicinity, if we listen in that context of global ontology and centuries of wisdom to the founding visionaries who were writing and composing the Declaration of Independence, it is amazing what we find if we have ontological awareness. So the lab you're about to go into, the conversation with some of our students in the lab, is going to really just inquire with sample citizens, what is your level of awareness of the meaning of the Declaration of Independence? Have you read it? Does it make sense? How do you make sense of it? When you hear it, can you hear it in the profundity of global ontology or ontology? Right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all humans are endowed by the source of unalienable rights, life, liberty, freedom, happiness. These are huge ideas. Because if we're bound, if our mind and our consciousness is ignorant of ontology, we can be bound and colonized. And if we're colonized, that means we're not free. So freedom has to do with ontological liberation, opening and liberating your being and your right to be, which comes with when you can have the power to say, politically, to say, I am, right? And not subsume yourself within whatever culture, which is an ontology you happen to be in. So that one of the lessons of our ontology lab is if you don't do ontology, which is to say, gain the literacy of your world and your culture, your ontology will do you.